Good morning. My name is Jeff Phillip. I am on your board of trustees, and I'm giving you your morning greeting and some reminders for upcoming activities and events. I'll pull up my list. We are going to have a congregational update meeting on January 21st after the service. So we invite you all to stick around after for some updates on what's going on with Cedars. There are a group of us who are preparing the event sales activity. We've done this in the past as kind of a hybrid fundraiser and create some social events for all of us to get together. They're generally small events that are hosted by folks in the congregation. So you might start thinking about if you want to host something like a nice dinner or a game night or a hike or something like that, and we'll be putting out a call for hosted events in a few weeks. On January 10th, the spiritual writing group will be at the Cedar Center at 5 p.m. That's on your order of service on the back, as well as on January 8th, the Women's Covenant group is meeting at 7. And finally, we are also starting up another community food service in Suquamish. The first one that we are organizing is on February 21st. So similar to our Super Suppers on Bainbridge and Winslow at the Eagle Harbor Congregational Church, we are preparing for a meal service at the Suquamish United Church of Christ. They've been doing this, they do it every Wednesday. And so we're looking to add to that and provide our support. So we are looking for folks who are willing to volunteer and prepare meals and serve them on Wednesday the 21st. If you're interested, reach out to me or Mike Cox in the back or Rod Kemkus over here at the AV table. And I hope you enjoy your morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Good morning, everyone. Happy New Year. It is 2024. We've made it. My name is Reverend Zachary Vinzen. If you don't know me, I use he, him pronouns, and I am feeling a little naked today. I left my stole at home. So just in case, I am the minister here, even though I may not look like it. Before we move further into our service, I want to invite all of you to take a moment to turn to your neighbors around you and greet one another and welcome each other into this space. Today in our service, we are exploring the power of words and the way they shape our world. To start us on this exploration together, I would like to share these words by Tahira Mafi. She writes, I spent my life folded between the pages of books. In the absence of human relationships, I formed bonds with paper characters. I lived and loved and lost through these stories. Threaded in history, I experienced adolescence by association. My world is one of an interwoven web of words, stringing limb to limb, bone to bone, sinew to sinew, thoughts and images all together. I am being comprised of letters, a character created by sentences, a figment of imagination formed through fiction. Come, let us worship together.
Thank you, Juliet. What are words worth? Words in papers, words in books, words on TV, words for crooks, words of comfort, words of peace, words to make the fighting cease, words to tell you what to do. Words are working hard for you. Eat your words, but don't go hungry. Words have always nearly hung me. These are lyrics from Wordy Rapping Hood by the Tom Tom Club, an offshoot band comprised of members of the Talking Heads. I listened to this album practically nonstop in 1981, my sophomore year of college. A few years later, in 1988, my mom and I were watching Saturday Night Live. I was in high school in the late 70s when Saturday Night Live began, and my family watched that first season together and continued to watch it throughout the years. We were a family of night owls, for sure. So on this particular night, my mom and I experienced our first Wayne's World skit with Wayne and Garth, played by Mike Myers and Dana Carvey. For quick context, these two fictional friends filmed a community access TV show for their high school cohorts in Aurora, Illinois, filmed in Wayne's parents' basement. Wayne and Garth's guest was the coolest guy in high school, played by a young Bruce Willis, wearing a leather jacket and sporting a mullet with very long hair. He was there to announce the cool word for the upcoming year. Very important. After much fawning over their guest, with disbelief and gratitude that he agreed to come on their show in the first place, the hosts invite their guest to reveal the cool word of the year. With much comic improv, flair, and an anticipatory pause, Wayne and Garth on the edge of their seats, their guest announces the word. Sphincter. Words are impactful. Every person has a collection of words that have special meaning. Maybe you've shared a moment with others where a word evokes a memory. Maybe a teacher used a word over and over again and it sounded oddly funny to you and your friends. So after class, you imitate the teacher in the hallway and giggle. Maybe it was a word you heard when you were young that signaled that your parent or older sibling meant business. These may or may not be instances drawn from my past. At work one day, a long time ago, a friend came up to my desk and said hello, in a way that surprised me. I was holding a pair of scissors, and in my surprise brought the scissors up to eye level as if I was about to attack. I wasn't. I was just reacting to a surprise hello. My friend, quick with a retort, proclaimed, "En garde!" We both laughed, and it became a shared memory. Now I think of that moment from time to time, despite almost never hearing the word en garde. In 2013, I worked with about 12 people in their early 20s. In a group, I asked them what they thought the new Oxford word of the year was. They guessed twerk, because that dance move and its newly invented word had made its way into the popular culture thanks, I think, to Miley Cyrus. The word was actually selfie. So it kind of gives you an idea. If you look at the list of Oxford words in the years that they were announced, you'll kind of get a feel for what was going on that year. It's a fun exercise. Words have different meanings in different contexts. The same word may be freeing to one set of people and have a negative context for an older generation. I have gay friends my age who do not want to be referred to as queer. It brings back really negative memories from a time when queer was spoken and intended as a slur. Now, the LGBTQ community has reclaimed this word to have an entirely different and uplifting meaning and feeling for those who identify as queer. Language matters. Here are a few types of language usage described by activist and language expert Alex Capitan. Violent language, minimizing language, coded language, unquestioned language, and liberatory language. Here is Alex's definition of liberatory language from their website, Radical Copy Editor. Liberatory language is language at its best. Liberatory language not only actively affirms all life and the full diversity of human experience, it also works constantly to communicate love, compassion, and nonviolence. Liberatory language understands that language isn't just about the words we use, it's about the values, intentions, and impact behind our words. It is used by the special ed, and they write this in quotes, teacher who tells every single one of his students that they're smart, beautiful, and powerful. To find out what language, I skipped a line. The worship leader who goes out of her way to find out what language each fellow leader of an interfaith service uses to describe divinity so she can be fully inclusive in the prayer she offers. The teenager who claims the language queer, crip, and fat for the first time to describe himself authentically. Liberatory language imbues those who experience the words with personal and collective agency. It seeks to describe and create the best, most radical reality we can imagine. A world free from violence in all its forms. A world where all life, all identities and experiences, and all ways of making meaning are understood as valuable and sacred. I dedicate the lighting of the chalice to the words we use in our daily lives. Words matter. May we choose them wisely. Please join me in the affirmation that is printed in your order of service. As we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family, to take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness, because that is how we will all become the best that we can be.
We'll now sing our first hymn of the day, Out of the Spirits, number 347, and our great hymnal. With that, please rise out of the Spirit and pray.
have a story to share with all of you. There once was a man who lived in a small house, and as people living in houses often do, he had a neighbor right next door. This man, the first man, in the story they call him the old man, but we'll just call him the man. He's the man. This man had a habit. It wasn't a great habit. He liked to spread rumors about his neighbor. Sometimes they were small rumors. Who left the dog poop out in the yard? Oh, it was Steve, the neighbor. These rumors, though, grew over time. Eventually, this man went around town and told of a rumor about his neighbor who had gone on a stealing rampage. You see, unconnected to the neighbor, there had been a string of thefts in the community. And so this man blamed his neighbor. People were up in arms. They came to the neighbor's house and without questioning arrested him. They had an interesting justice system in this village. They did investigate, and they found through the course of their investigation that actually all of these things that the man had said about his neighbor weren't true. They weren't true. None of them could be verified. In fact, many of the objects that had gone missing were found. They had been misplaced. The neighbor was released from the prison cell that he was held in and decided he was going to do something. And so he filed a lawsuit. He was suing his neighbor for the harm that he had caused to his character. The case went to court, and the judge heard all of the rumors that the man had told about his neighbor. And when the case was over, before the man was presented with his sentence, the judge said this: "Before I rule in this case, I want you to go home tonight. And before you go home, though, take a moment and write down everything that you have said about your neighbor. Every unkind word, every false story, every rumor. And write them all on individual slips of paper. And as you make your way home, as you're walking, I want you to toss these slips of paper on your journey." The man thought he was getting a good deal here, because this is pretty easy. I can't wait to hear what the sentence is if this is where we're starting. He does what the judge says, writes down all the things, walks home, throws the slips of paper along the path, goes to sleep. The next morning he wakes and returns to the judge. The judge says, "Before I pronounce your sentence, I want you to go out and gather up all those slips of paper that you threw out on your journey home yesterday. All those rumors and falsehoods that you wrote on those paper. Gather them all up and bring them back to me, and then we can talk." The man sighed. "I can't do that. The wind must have spread them all over by now, and a few of them I remember pausing to throw into the stream as I crossed the bridge. There's no way I'm getting those pieces of paper back." The judge then looked at the man in the face and said, "Just as the rumors and falsehoods you spread cannot be taken back, just like these pieces of paper, the things that we put out into the world are out there. We can't bring them back. Words are powerful. They have the ability to inspire, motivate, and persuade, or discourage, dismiss, dissuade. With your words, you wield the power to plant seeds of either success or failure in the mind of another. And in the process, you reveal who you are, how you think, and what you believe. Whether it's inspiring a community, a child, launching a product, building a team, or mending a relationship, the right words spoken at the right time can change history, just as the wrong words spoken at the wrong time can change history. And that is our story for today. If you spend much time among religious scholars and theologians, you'll learn that there is constantly a debate among words. Scriptures translated different ways. There's a documentary that came out recently titled 1946 that actually explores this specifically in reference to the use of the word homosexual in the New Revised Standard Bible. Most scholars today believe that was not the word that would have been included in the Greek. In this spirit, though, I wanted to offer for our centering moment one of my favorite translations of a prayer I'm sure many of you are familiar with. This is a translation of the Lord's Prayer that comes out of the New Zealand Anglican Book of Common Prayer. And I love it because it was a translation that came about as a way of being more culturally sensitive and also inclusive, expanding who it is that we call the holy, the divine. And so I'd invite you to take a breath with me. Center yourselves for a moment of prayer. Eternal Spirit, earth maker, pain bearer, life giver, source of all that is and that shall be, Father and Mother of us all, loving God in whom is heaven. The hallowing of your name echoes through the universe. The way of your justice be followed by all the peoples of the world. Your heavenly will be done by all created beings. Your commonwealth of peace and freedom sustain our hope and come on earth. With the bread we need for today, feed us. And the hurts we absorb from one another, forgive us. In times of temptation and test, strengthen us. From trials too great to endure, spare us. From the grip of all that is evil, free us. For you reign in the glory of the power that is love, now and forever. Amen.
We share joys and sorrows in this community, so you don't have to carry your sorrows alone, and so that we can celebrate your joys with you. If you do have a joy or a sorrow, please step forward, tell us your name, and in a couple of brief sentences, share your joy or sorrow. water your sorrows that go unspoken. And I'll put some water in the bowl for the joys that you haven't shared with us, but we hope someday we can celebrate with you. I'll confess I had the perfect reading for our offering, and I lost it. Lost my place. So, I'm going to read a different one. To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk appearing sentimental. To reach out for another is to risk exposing our true self. To place our ideas, our dreams before the crowd is to risk loss. To love is to risk not being loved in return. To hope is to risk despair. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying. And this has nothing to do with sharing your generosity with Cedars, but it is time to pass the baskets. So will the ushers please come forward and pass the baskets for the offering. thank you all for your generous gifts.
I am a lover of words. I love learning about the history and etymology of words. I have a creative writing degree and love exploring words. I love poetry because of the way it utilizes words in a very economic way to convey these really complex, often universal ideas. I love words. I think they shape who we are, what we believe. They help us communicate these things to other people. Saying all this, you can imagine my surprise when I read an article several weeks ago about the philosophy of words that is at play in psychological writing. If you don't know, scholars in the field of psychology get their formatting cues from the American Psychological Association, the APA. In this article I read that was talking about the nuances of this style of writing, the author explained that it is the stylistic goal of APA writing to be morally and ethically neutral in language when writing. The reason given was that such a rhetorical move allows the author to maintain a degree of distance and objectivity from what is being written about. The problem, though, with this aim for me is I fundamentally do not believe that language can be neutral. I don't think I realized this about myself until reading this article. Something about it kind of had me feeling a bit anxious, and as I sat exploring, I realized that that is what it is. I don't believe that language can be neutral. Language shapes our world. It defines us and allows us to communicate person to person across time and space. Written language allows us to enter into conversations with people who lived thousands of years ago to still engage in this discourse. Well, it's not just me that has this problem with this neutral approach to language. To give you an idea, going back thousands of years, people in a variety of cultures have believed that there is a power to words. Not just the power like I'm talking about, the power that shapes our worldviews, but an actual power. To give you an example, there were certain words from ancient times that were viewed as sort of words of power. An example of one of these words of power is a word many of you have probably heard at some point: abracadabra. Abracadabra. Abracadabra, Alakazam, many of these words that kind of come up in sort of more playful ways today were in ancient times believed to be charms that carried with them these strong forces. The word abracadabra, for instance, was a healing charm. You would go to a healer or someone who specialized in these sort of magical cures, and they would write abracadabra on a sheet of parchment. And then on the next line, they would drop the A and write bracadabra. And each time drop another letter until you get to the final A in this sort of triangular-shaped abracadabra down. These parchments then would be placed in the beds of a sick person, on the doors of homes, as a sort of blessing, bringing in the healing energy. There was power in these words. They were not used lightly. Many feared them even. Beyond this use of abracadabra, and I'll note, I think the earliest reference is from a 2nd century Italian grimoire. And the funny thing about this word is, despite being documented for so long, we don't actually know what it means. Some have said it means I create as I say, but that is more of an apocryphal story that was added later. Another place that believed in the power of words is in the ancient Egyptian idea or concept of the self. We talked about self last week, if you were here, and we explored internal family systems. And it's different, but in ancient Egypt, they believed that each person was composed of a variety of different parts. These parts represented different aspects of the self and performed different functions in the physical and spiritual world. There was the Sa, or the spiritual body, the body that could live in the heavens with the gods if you went through the Osirian rites. There was the Ren, or the name, the essence of who you were in word. We'll get back to that shortly. The Ba, which is one of my favorites. It's a little bird-headed aspect of yourself. It has a bird body, but a human head representing the person that it was the Ba of. And the Ba has the ability to travel out into the world. When you enter the tomb in the physical form, the Ba goes and collects the water, the food, the air, the sunlight to sustain the sort of self in these ways. There's the Ka, or the double. The Ka is the personality that can live up in the sky. It's sort of seen as the spirit version of who you are. There's the Ib, or the heart. This is said to be the source of good and evil. If you're familiar with the Osirian rites, there's the heart is taken and weighed on a scale against a feather to determine the good or evil. The shoot, or the shadow, which can venture out and do things as well. And the Skem, or the power form. This is the form of you also in the spirit world. All of these words represented different aspects of yourself, and everyone was said to have these aspects. There were rituals associated with them. But the Ren, this name of power, is the specific part I want to talk about. This aspect, the name, was understood to be essential to who you are as an individual. It would be revealed to an infant in a special ritual performed by priests. Only the people necessary to be there would be present during a Ren naming ritual. We're not sure exactly who those people are, but we could imagine it would probably be the priest. The infant themselves, possibly the parents. Someone needs to hear the name to tell them later. This name, though, was seen as being so sacred, so important, that after given, it would not be used except among those you trusted the most. In your day-to-day life in this society, you would use a nickname, essentially, to go about your daily business, a name everyone knew about you. This is because it was believed if you were to learn someone's Ren, you could have power over them. This is related to another idea from from ancient Egyptian theology, this idea of Heka. Heka is actually where we get the word magic. I was talking with Nancy earlier. Coincidentally, it's not where we get hex, which you would think, Heka, hex. The word magic comes from this Egyptian concept of Heka. Heka was a force that would issue out from me and literally enter into another. We've learned in the time of COVID how much we sort of project little particles of things into the air. The ancient Egyptians were very aware of this too, and they believed that this was an aspect of the Heka. A physical aspect of me, my saliva, along with the sound and the words I said, would leave my being and enter into the being of another. Because of this understanding, if you were to have someone's Ren name and use this concept and speak their name to them, It was believed that you would then have power over this aspect of the individual. Names were powerful. As empires changed in Egyptian society, oftentimes the names of former rulers would be erased from carvings. You'll see many of the sort of old hieroglyphic carvings where there's wedges taken out to remove someone's name, to destroy that aspect of someone. Words were powerful to the ancient Egyptians. But it's not just in Egypt. If we turn to Tibetan Buddhism, there's a book many of you may have heard about in reference to Timothy Leary opening the doors of perception. Get a sense of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This book more accurately could be translated as the Book of Liberation through Hearing. The Book of Liberation through Hearing. Again, this is because there was a belief that the words had power. These particular words for Tibetan Buddhists were meant to be studied during the life. They contain a sort of guide to the various challenges you will face in the afterlife. And that through studying them in life, you would be prepared to go on this journey towards a positive rebirth in the afterlife. These words, though, not only were studied, but are believed by many to be so powerful that just hearing them, even if you don't understand them, just hearing the recitation of these words changes something in you, changes something in your karmic structure that just hearing can lead to liberation. That's why it's hearing through liberation. Words have been believed by many people to contain power, to liberate us, to have control over us, to represent our true self. But it's not just in ancient times. I talked about my love of words and how I believe that they shape our reality. It's a fundamental thing for me. But beyond that, we all the time use our words in ways that can hurt, that can heal, that can lift someone up, that can tear them down. Last week, when we did our internal family systems exercise, I invited folks, as they felt comfortable, on their envelope to write the name that they would like to sort of see themselves with. Since then, many people have checked in with me and talked about the power of using a different name in that exercise, of calling themselves something that felt more representative of who they are, even if they didn't share it. Names can affirm us, even if they're held secretly like a Ren name, just for ourselves. There's a lot of conversation around pronouns. Pronouns are words. I think before the conversation of using pronouns, many of us didn't think about this. He, him, she, her, they, them. Or with the neo-pronouns, they, zer, the list goes on. We've talked about the importance of using these words as a way of affirming someone's worth and dignity. Words have the power to show someone we respect who they are in their identity, in the fullness of how they express themselves. Those are two examples of external ways that we can use words to sort of harm, to heal, external ways that words are powerful. But even within our own thoughts, within our own internal monologue, words are powerful. There's this idea of self-talk, the way that we talk about ourselves internally. Sometimes we tend to get in these negative loops. We might beat ourselves up. And one of the things that can be helpful when this happens is to turn that self-talk from negative to positive. A simple example, oftentimes I'll say, I don't want to do this. I might have a task I'm doing. I don't want to do this. I get myself sort of in this space, I resist it, to switch that and say, oh, this is going to be exciting. Oh, this is interesting. Even if I don't fully believe it's going to be exciting, sometimes taking that moment to flip that internal dialogue, to change my self-talk to one of affirmation, it has a power of shaping the way I engage with the tasks, the people in my lives. Words are powerful. In closing, I want to remind us of the words from Tahira Mafi. She writes, "My world is one interwoven web of words, stringing limb to limb, bone to sinew, thoughts and images all together. I'm being comprised of letters, created by sentences, a figment of an imagination formed through fiction." Invite us to use our words, use them in imaginative ways to form who it is we want to be, to form what our world looks like, to form ourselves and each other to the glory of life. In closing, I'd like to invite us to rise as you are willing and able as we prepare to sing our final hymn of our service today, hymn number 108, "My Life Flows On in Endless Song."
Please join me in the responsive reading as we extinguish the chalice. We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth.
We extinguish the flame, but not the light of truth.
The warmth of community or the fire of commitment.
The warmth of community or the fire of commitment.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Teamwork. It's that fire of...
Yes.
Our service has ended, but our service to the world and one another begins anew. As we go forth, may we be inspired to draw on the power of our words to create a world of justice and love. May it be so.